Hi, this is Coach Aaron Saft in the Running is Life podcast. My guest is a repeat offender, Allison Mercer. Allison most recently just set a PR at the Berlin Marathon, sub 250. She ran 249, which is awesome. But that made her confident to go into the Tunnel Hill 50 miler and go after the American record. Well, not just the American record, but the course record for Tunnel Hill 50, which would require a low 6-hour finish. And so we talk about what went on and how she ended up getting an American Masters 50-mile record. Great conversation. We talk about Strolling Jim and her finish there, getting her second golden shirt. And what went into her training, what was training like between Strolling Jim and Berlin, and then how did she go from Berlin to the Tunnel Hill 50 miler. There's a lot in here. We talk about the team she has behind her, her training, the races, nutrition, all sorts of stuff, strength training. It's really in depth. We wanted to kind of dive in and just kind of hear from her and how she did things. So maybe you guys can take some things away from it rather than just do kind of a race report. So I really appreciate Allison's time, and congratulations for an amazing finish at Tunnel Hill. So you'll hear all about it here in our conversation. Afterwards, I've got a listener question that came in, so I'm going to answer that. And I mentioned it in the podcast here, but I had a question come in about training under a ketone or a ketosis diet. So I'm going to talk about that at the end. And then, kind of catch up on everything else that's going on here. So until then, enjoy my conversation with Allison. So I have with me the one-woman dance party, also known as Allison Mercer. It's great to see you, ma'am, although the listeners obviously can't. But how is everything feeling after such a tremendous effort?
Feels great. Let's go do 100 now. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want Ben, my husband, to hear that. He will just start cringing and say, "Hey, we promise no more racing after this year."
That's fantastic. So that said, 50 miles. This year. You guys had done the Georgia Loop as the FKT, right? It was the Georgia Loop
We had done Georgia Loop and Georgia AT.
and Georgia AT. So you've been over the distance, right?
But
Yeah.
not a runnable 15
Right, but
miles.
not a runnable 50 miles. Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, not quite comparable. Right.
No.
So we've been over this distance, but this was I really can't wait to just dive in on this, but we have so much to talk about. So let's start, Allison, with just a little bit about you. You've been on the podcast, I think 2 times previously. We talked about the Georgia Loop when you guys did that, you and Ben, and then we talked about Strolling Jim when you ran outstandingly last year. That was last year, I'm thinking, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then so now we're talking Tunnel Hill, but for those that don't know, Allison, can you give us a snapshot of Allison Mercer?
Sure, I'm new to this running thing now. I've been running for years. I was one of those people that couldn't dribble a basketball, even though I'm 5'9". Didn't have any hand-eye coordination, so I started taking up running and just very casual in high school, played ultimate frisbee in college at the University of Pennsylvania. And after college, just kept running very casually. I worked in TV, so running was the one thing you could do anytime. And then through friends and running groups, started doing marathons. And then thanks to Strava and friends and people telling me about FKTs, kind of went into longer distances and peer pressure by my husband, started doing more competitive races like Strolling Jim and Tunnel Hill. So that's why we're here.
Right on. And the marathon, for those that want to hear, what's your PR in the marathon?
I set my PR this year at Berlin in a 2:49. So very
2:49.
happy with
Awesome.
that.
Yes. And the Olympic trials qualifier is set at what now?
2:37. So
2:37. Okay.
little off from that. We'll see what happens next cycle, but I feel like, yeah, I feel very strong. It was a very comfortable pace. So depending on if they lower the standard more, I would want to go for it. why not? But there's a few other things on my list that may take priority. So we'll just see how the year shakes out.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. When do you have to have the Olympic trial qualifier time in by? Is the trials in February in Orlando? Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah. So the last race is CIM. So obviously this cycle is null and void, but next cycle,
Okay.
we'll see what the standard is.
I see. Right on. Very good. Yeah. Cool. So let's talk a little bit. I imagine that after Strolling Jim, that gave you a glimpse into possibilities. So after Strolling Jim, what was the seed that was planted? And you can talk about Strolling Jim a little bit just to kind of recap what you did.
Yeah, I mean, not only last year at Strolling Jim getting the gold shirt, finishing second to Camille and running the fourth fastest time at the course history. I came back this year to do Strolling Jim again. I was going to do it with Ben, but he had injuries, so wanted to see if I could capture the magic again. If it was a fluke, what could happen? And even though the course was more true to the race conditions where it was like 70 at the start and I knew it was going to be hot, especially the last 10 miles where you're gone through all the hills, but you're just fully exposed, and ran about the exact same time and became the first woman to ever win two gold shirts. So it's cool that three women have gold shirts, but only one has two. So it was pretty special and felt very rewarding knowing that wasn't a fluke. Because last year in Chicago marathon, I didn't have the best race. I had sprained my ankle a week and a half before and really just wanted some redemption and feeling like, all right, I can do this, and just get that confidence back.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, Strolling Jim is roughly 40 miles. Yeah.
41.2.
41.2. There it is. So 41.2. It's roads, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in Tennessee. And then the gold shirt, the standard for getting a gold shirt is sub
5 hours.
5 hours, which that's incredible. Awesome. And like you said, the woman that beat you last year was Camille Herron. So
Casual.
yeah, not too shabby.
Mm-hmm.
So that sets you up well. Now, based off of that, and what did you project? What all of a sudden were you like, what was going through your head?
I mean, it just felt great. I finished second overall, and it was just so rewarding knowing it was about 20 degrees warmer and I ran the exact same a year older, year later. A little different training.
Okay.
I had followed a similar training plan to what I did the year before, but just added more volume because I
Okay.
feel like I just needed more miles and add more hills because I knew what to expect. And I guess that's a blessing and a curse when you've just got four big hills, you got to finish strong, and then knowing the last 10 is as runnable as you can on that course. So
Mhm.
really save it.
Nice.
So it was nice to know what to train for, what to look out for, and kind of have preparation beforehand.
That's awesome. And that previous training plan, was that something you came up with yourself?
No, I had Janice Anderson come up with it, and she had set course records. I think she had won it probably 10 times. They give a packet every year and it gives a history of the race and who's competed. And her name is literally everywhere, including the year she didn't show up because she was getting married. It's amazing. So pretty
That's cool.
cool to have someone that knows the course, understands it, and kind of gets and lives really close by, so she knows exactly where to train.
Okay.
So
And then in your preps for Tunnel Hill, did she write you a plan as well, or yeah?
yes, she's done Tunnel Hill several times as well. And after Berlin, the legs felt good. And I talked to Ben and I was like, am I crazy to do a 50 miler 6 weeks after this race? Because
Berlin I had signed up for in December of last year. So my race calendar was basically focused on Berlin.
Hmm.
Um, Ben's sister lives in Finland and was moving to Berlin. So we were going to do a family trip anyways. So she was like, let's all register for Berlin. And of course, I'm the one that gets in. So that was on my calendar. But after Strolling Jim, Steve Durbin, who is a co RD along with Laz, was like, I want you to do Tunnel Hill. You would fly. You would do so well. I want you to do it. And I was just like, I don't want to make any promises because if Berlin goes bad, if I get injured, I don't want to make any promises and then feel like I'm failing or I'm coming up short and
Hmm.
just put unnecessary pressure. But
Okay.
when Berlin went well, I felt like I could have run longer and just held a very consistent pace. I was like, let's go for it. you
Nice.
know?
Yeah. Very cool. Um, so all right, so that's how we set up Tunnel Hill. And as you said, your schedule was really set up for Berlin. Now, in the rears, did she plan as like a kind of an asterisk, like maybe Tunnel Hill is still out there, like, or was it totally focused on Berlin?
So I actually used her training plan from Chicago and just added a lot more miles where I just ran every day. Like, I just found I do better just running every day. It doesn't have to be world record pace every day, but just to get out there, get the legs moving, even if it's 5 miles. We live so close to very soft surfaces in the trails that there's no I have no excuse not to go. So I feel like I feel worse when I'm not running, and being able to balance what is an easy pace, recovery pace versus a workout really helped get myself in training and gear and also get those higher mileage. But after Berlin, I was like, who will understand my craziness of a 6 week recover from Berlin, but prepare for Tunnel Hill. So that's when I called Janice and I was like, am I crazy for wanting to do this? And can you write me a plan that will set me up for success to have that confidence? Like, I can do this distance, I can run this at a consistent pace,
Hmm.
and with eyes on the course record.
Uh, now, with eyes on the course record, was it the overall course record, or were we
The
looking?
women's the women's course record of a 6:02, which I also looked at what the master's record was, and it was a 6:09. So I knew if I got the course record, then I would also get the master's record.
Right.
So, and given the how master's running is right now with Camille, with Des, with Sarah Hall, like everyone just running so fast and age is not even relevant. I was like, why not go for it? It's something that is in my wheelhouse within my range of possibilities. So why not?
And who was the previous? I mean, we'll just say yes. The course records were broken. So, uh,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but and we'll get to that obviously. But who
Mhm.
held them previously?
I forget the name. I should, but it was from 2017. So, and
Okay.
she also has the 100K record right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I was more focused on the number than the person.
Right. And so you were looking at the course records.
hmm
You also established an American best time in the process, right?
hmm
Okay.
Yes, American Masters record.
Okay. We can get to that as well. Um, but let's go back a little bit because I want to kind of set up your training. Um,
hmm
Now, training for Strolling Jim, that was very specific, right? We're not looking at marathon training there. Um, so what did your volume look like training for Strolling Jim in comparison to when you were training for Berlin? Was it similar or less?
I would say it was focused more on hills specific and just being powerful, not only on the uphills, but the downhills, because I felt like my adductors really started cramping and I
Okay.
could really feel it at the end when there's some really steep downhills. So just focusing more on the weaknesses and just being so strong on the climbs that I would do really hilly course, a course around my neighborhood, but then go to the flats. So
Right.
I could still have the legs to kind of just finish strong versus Berlin, where it's just as pancake as it can get. And I felt like during Chicago, my quad started hurting because it was just so repetitive
Mm-hmm.
and just the same motion. And there was
Yep.
no kind of up or down or something that I just made sure I could just zone out, just what is it, go to sleep and then just keep going. And it was not a problem.
Right on. So, Allison's kind of in the Atlanta area. Did you find it suitable for training for such a flat race?
Oh, definitely. There's like I say, the neighborhood, my neighborhood can be really flat. They're right by the Chattahoochee River. There's a 5 mile kind of loop where I would do it up to like 4 times. And there's a bathroom and a water shop. And I literally know every mile marker on there. And it's such a popular place that I would run with friends, members of the Atlanta Track Club, have friends come out and just see people where it's just, just a fun place to run and meet up with different people and help the miles fly by.
Nice. And looking back at Strolling Jim, did you and Janice, right? It was Janice. Did you and Janice set up specific blocks to train something specifically? Like for instance, was there a threshold block? Was there a peak VO2 block? Or did you guys mix the systems and use that approach?
It was more on just pace work, where a lot of it was easy runs, just building volume.
Okay.
Or there would be some at Strolling Jim pace, where if it was Strolling Jim pace, I would make sure it was hilly and just able to handle that. Or we would do some at marathon pace, where it was just quicker turnover. Or in long runs, I would do a mixture of both, where it was like, all right, we're going to do it at Strolling Jim pace, then come down to marathon pace, and then
Right?
really have that, and also just be so comfortable with that pace where I wouldn't even have to look at my watch and know, all right, I'm going at this pace, or I'm picking it up a little too fast. Like I shouldn't be mile 2 and doing 6:30s.
Okay. Did you incorporate anything else? Strides, strength training, anything to that capacity?
Yes. Marissa Romeo actually wrote me a strength training plan, which helped immensely because that was one thing I felt like I lacked and needed some kind of structure to really help with core, upper body, and really build in that. So I worked with her getting a plan that was really easy to follow. Just from home, I work from home. So it's nice to break up the day with after a long run or a workout with a good strength training plan.
Nice. And was that for both Strolling Jim and for Berlin / Small Hill? Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. And how about any other ancillary things? Are you doing any type of mobility, strides, yoga? Was there any other pieces that you added?
I do a lot of stretching and I do a lot of legs against the wall, a lot of foam rolling. I have this thing, my psoas is always messed up. So I do this thing called the right, where you just literally lie on this thing and it stretches out your psoas just to really stretch everything out. Just making sure I'm incorporating that. I would do some strides at the end of workouts, but more of just the overall, just stretching and making sure I feel good and making sure everything feels loose, and also just regular body work. We work with one of our good friends, Shannon Greenhill, who has a practice up in Blue Ridge, and literally go see her, and she helps with dry needling or any kind of aches and pains, and has literally saved my body and Ben's body, and she just does wonderful work. And it's just nice to have someone that's gets it, because she works out. She was runner, pro cyclist, so she gets the needs of runners, which I feel like is so helpful.
Yeah. And I think it's important just to pause and just note that you have, and this is something I always talk about on the podcast, is you have such a good team around you, right? You've got someone that can take care of the niggles, right? You've got Marissa that's helping you with the strength training. You got Janice that's helping you with your programming. You have people around you that are providing you feedback as well as structure to your program. And you can ask questions, communicate with, which is fantastic. I think that's a great approach. And probably the one that provides the most success to anyone. So the kudos to you.
And Ben too, because I feel like
Ben
Ben handles the rest, the day to day, any time of stress, and just having, I think, a partner in a support system to have that gets it and just literally supports your dreams, because a lot of this wouldn't be possible for me to recognize it, because running has just been a part of my life, but knowing that I can achieve bigger things, you need someone that can dream that with you.
Yeah, it's Ben being her husband, and I don't know if we mentioned that previously, but Ben, yes, having that significant other that is invested in what you're trying to accomplish is absolutely huge. I'm blessed to have the same in my partner.
All about it.
Yep,
that
absolutely.
makes the sacrifices.
Absolutely. Yes.
Understands it.
Yep. That's for sure. You got to have them on board. That's a great point. Okay. So, after, Strolling Jim, now, help me with the timeline here. Strolling Jim is that May? Am I thinking?
Yep. First Saturday in May.
First Saturday in May. Okay. So you finished Strolling Jim, first Saturday in May. What does the recovery period look like for you?
It was basically, I go with, and you may be familiar with this, the Pat Reagan method of recovery, where you take a day off for every 10 miles raced. And so I made sure to just take my time, just when are the quads, when can I, and I think your listeners will appreciate this, sit down on the toilet and not feel like your, quads are going to give out, go down the stairs.
Yes.
And just felt good. But I feel like doing a lot of walking and just slow jogging back, because I decided to do a couple fun 5Ks, because I had the Peachtree Road Race coming up and I was racing it as a masters. So I wanted to do well on that. And so I did a couple tune-up races and then did Peachtree. So it was kind of like a month to get ready into the 10K mode, and ended up winning first in masters.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's incredible. That's July 4th, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. The world's largest 10K in Atlanta.
Awesome. So we went from first weekend in May, got a good recovery period into June, basically, and then kind of a short cycle training you for Peachtree 10K.
Yes.
Very cool. Okay. And body stayed healthy. Everything was good.
Everything was good. Awesome. And then rolled right into Berlin training, where it was just like Berlin was September 24th or 25th. So I had about, it's not like I was didn't have a base. So I used my 12-week Chicago plan to really hone in starting first week in August to do that. And then just very smooth training plan. It was very smooth training block and peaked to about 90 miles a week, which I had never done, and just going with a higher volume approach, which really helped. I feel like you always worry about doing higher mileage, but it worked because, once again, having the system, recovery, nutrition, sleep, and just a regular schedule. Last year we were moving, we traveled a ton. Ben had a 100-miler. We went up to visit my family in Montana, and just had a lot of interruptions, sprained ankle. To have no other kind of outside stressor really helped in dialing in. Plus, having a group with the Atlanta Track Club that were really focused in on final marathons made this training block a lot easier.
Awesome. And of note here, and Allison says that she got to a max volume of 90 miles per hour, 90 miles per hour, 90 miles per week.
I
wish. 90 miles per week. Note that she said she had a good base under her, and that she's been doing this for long periods of time. So those of you that are looking to increase volume, increase, wisely. It's not that you have to increase by 10%. It's more just, what is your experience? Where have you been in the past? And, what has your body been able to accommodate without injury? And also note that Allison took a very holistic approach. She was taking care of everything. As we already talked about, she had the team that surrounded her to keep her healthy, the strength component, the mobility component. There's a lot here that kept Allison healthy. So it's not that you can't increase your volume. It's just you need to make sure you're incorporating all of those things in your growth to increase your volume. And there is no ideal volume for anyone. Like, Allison's was 90 miles per hour. Some others maybe 60, maybe 70. It's all individualistic. So realize that as well. I don't want people thinking like, oh, I should shoot for 90 miles per week. No. So, that's something to talk about as well, because, she developed her skeletal muscular system, and that's something we often neglect. And that's where injury can come in, is we often work on the cardiovascular side of this. We only think of running as what's going to keep us, improving. But Allison, working with Marissa, she improved her skeletal muscular system, which is also, something that's very important for running. There's so many benefits to it, and that's a whole other conversation. But, incorporating both is what's going to keep you healthy and allowing that volume to continue to increase. So just a side note.
Definitely. and also the nutrition, fueling is so important. I feel like, females especially, we skimp out, but there's something to be said for having regular nutrition if you need a nutritionist, and balancing the amount of volume and what you're doing, because if you're not fueling and recovering, you won't be able to run. And I've had my past of dealing with that, and I feel like most people have had probably a history, and if you want to be successful, it's okay. You don't have to be this stick thin. You want to be strong, you want to be healthy, you want to be able to do every run and make it to your max potential.
Right. Great points. Absolutely. Nutrition is vital. So as I've learned about recently, that's then it's
your last episode. Yes.
Yep. And then I actually had a great question, which I'll probably answer after we finish our conversation about being a keto runner. There was a question came in, so I'll answer that later. But man, it's that I'm so glad to hear you had this great approach with the team around you. So the Berlin training, once again, I'll ask the question: was there a focus in the cycle? Was it spread out in blocks? Was there intention as to what you were training in various pieces of the training block, or did you continue with the getting used to marathon pace?
Yeah, it was more focused on marathon pace and just setting that rhythm and just getting used to the flat, zoning out and just finding that rhythm within myself, knowing that pace.
Mm-hmm.
And it really paid off, because in the race, my splits were dead even. It was about 20-minute 5K. And that was another thing. If people are ever doing Berlin, make sure you do your workouts in kilometers, because the race is measured and the markers are all kilometers. There are no mile markers.
Right.
You can tell the Americans because their watches go off in the miles,
right.
But that's the only way you know what your miles are. So I started knowing all right, 5K, or knowing an 8K is about 5 miles. And all the water stops were about 5K spread apart. So just really settling into a rhythm. And like I said before, I knew without looking at my watch, because just like Chicago, your watch can go haywire. You're going in and out of busy cities, busy streets. GPS watches can only do so much to really know, all right, this is what this pace feels like. This is how my arms are going, my legs, my cadence. And also a huge thing was practicing nutrition and really dialing in fueling strategies, because I take like 7, 8 gels during a marathon, and just making sure your stomach's comfortable with that. And also my peak was in the Atlanta heat. So, I knew going in, it was going to be a lot cooler, but if your body can get used to the high temperatures, high humidity, or as we call poor man's altitude, it really helps in building the strength training, but it also adds to the recovery, making sure that you are getting those necessary electrolytes and replenishing your body, because some of those workouts I was wiped.
Another question that often gets asked is, you work full time, right? Your max volume was 90 miles per week. You're also doing strength training. What are some ways that you make sure you get it all in?
Yes. Well, I guess I have 1.5 jobs with FKT, but I am a huge morning person. I love getting out the door, getting it in. So just having the 6 a.m. wake up call, much to Ben's dismay, because he's not a morning person. And just getting out the door, because it's one of those things where it's better almost up there with coffee, where I am a totally different person if I don't have that morning run. You do not want to talk to me. My boss, to the point, is like, have you not gone on your run today? So just fitting it in. And then in the afternoons, because I'm remote and I sit at a desk, I take, my lunch break and make sure I get the workout in, or after work, and really make sure I feel better, because I have the approach where I know I feel better after I do it.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's doing half and half, breaking up the day so I'm not sitting as long, and making sure I'm walking around, because as many people know, you sit at your desk all day, it's just, you're tired, you're lethargic. It's, it's just bad for you, because now they say sitting is the new smoking. So to really help break up the day. And once again, I'm really lucky in having a very flexible position. But when I travel for work, it makes it a little harder, where I just have to be flexible in my schedule and know, all right, if I'm going to Phoenix or Seattle, I'll try and get my run in at, 5:30 in the morning, or if there's a good treadmill, make sure I have a good playlist.
Nice.
So you have to be flexible too.
Yeah, absolutely. And along that flexibility, if something on the schedule calls for a harder effort, let's say you had a pace day, but your body's like telling you, today may not be the day. How do you handle that? Do you run through it, or do you move it? How do you do that?
So it just depends on what it is. Like, if I'm on my period and I feel like crap, I will move it to another day. If I'm just being, I look at the outside stressors. Like, did I get a good night's sleep? Is work really stressful? I'll either skip it, or just say, hey, I'm going to start out, get a good playlist, maybe ask a friend to go run and kind of get started. Because sometimes it just takes that push out the door to really just make you like get that rhythm. All right, I can do this. Or sometimes you just say no. Like, it's just all on how your body, and I feel like for me, doing this for as long as I have, you really are in tune with your body and know, all right, is this an injury, or is this a little niggle, or is this, hey, I'm at peak week, or other signs and symptoms, or am I just really stressed?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Awesome. Very cool. What does a taper look like for you?
I did about every taper is a little different. As I talked about with Berlin, it was initially set as we were going to visit Ben's sister and travel with his family. But that taper involved going to Finland, Sweden, and Norway, which is great. It's a great opportunity, but when you're probably not wanting to be on your feet as much, especially in cobblestones and going to different countries, it probably wasn't the most ideal for a marathon. But early on, I shaped it as this is an experience. And the marathon is a reward. Like, I get to do this. I get to be a part of this. We are fortunate enough to travel internationally to do our race.
Man.
So I went in with the perspective of, I'm not going to miss an opportunity to see castles in Sweden or go on a boat tour in Norway because my race.
Yeah.
So I think it was a good mentality of going, I want to do well, I want a PR, but I'm not willing to sacrifice a trip.
Sure.
So that was tough. But the day before the race, I kind of chilled out. We watched the inline skating competition. I met up with a friend and kind of walked around Berlin a little bit and saw the Holocaust Memorial, Brandenburg Gate, and kind of got a perspective. I'm Jewish, so to see the history and really know how fortunate I am to be a part of this race, and just think about the history of the city, what's gone on. Just put a bigger picture of, oh, my race, what am I going to do? I haven't been able to really rest and put things in perspective, which I feel like as runners, we always kind of lose sight of.
Yes. Yep.
So,
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I felt the one thing about that race is the logistics and getting down there and going to the start. It's about a mile, so you don't really need to warm up. And just like any major, it gets very overwhelming when you have 50,000 people of all different countries and nationalities and coming through, and there's no signs. So I'm just like, just get to the start. Just get to the start.
And were you in the elite corral? Were you in the?
I was in wave 2, wave B. Okay. So wave A was like 245, I think sub 245.
Okay.
And then so I was right behind, but we got to see Kipchoge getting announced, and it just everyone just starts cheering, and there's like pyrotechnics. It was wild. But when the gun went off, I didn't even cross like the starting gate or whatever till about a minute and a half after. It just shows you how crowded it was.
Yeah.
And I probably weaved in and out for the first 5 to 6 miles.
Okay. Did that put you behind on pacing or?
No, I was pretty right on.
Okay.
I also went in with it was like, I want to hit this time, I'll go for it. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But as I went on, it was kind of funny because I wore headphones, and I have never listened to music during a marathon, but because it was just kind of overwhelming with all the people, I was like, I'll listen to music, get in my zone, just find my comfort zone. I just kind of zoned out and honed in on that pace. And then I forgot to put off my notifications. So I was reading all my text messages. So a group of friends were up at like 3 a.m. going, Allison's pacing is phenomenal. He is just consistent 20-minute 5Ks. Like, can she hold on to this? Like, all this. I was like, oh, I'm doing well, I guess.
That's awesome.
Because it was hard to see with the clocks, because I didn't see what time I actually crossed the start. So I didn't know chip time versus gun time. But every time I saw it, I could see it was about plus 20 minutes.
Yep.
And then had as much nutrition. But the one thing I noticed is that they had Morton drink mix about twice, but not until later, like 32 or 35K, did they have the gels.
Okay.
So that was kind of like, I'm glad I had plenty of gels. And they had hot tea at one point too, which was wild.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay.
But overall, the race was just so smooth. Like,
good.
It was nice to know once I was like halfway, I was like, oh, I have a half, like no problem. And just started really like honing in and passing people and just spotting any ponytails and just kind of just moving myself up. So nice. It felt really good to feel really strong throughout that race.
Very cool. Now, do you, from the gun, do you go right to pace or do you work into it? What's your strategy?
Yeah, it was about yeah, I started about sub 6:30. I really wanted to break 250. That was the goal.
Okay.
And just see where I could, see what I could do.
Yeah.
I was having a lot of taper tantrums where like my foot was bothering me before the race, so I was just like, I don't know if I can do this, but I was just like, you know what? Let's see what I got. So
Nice.
it worked out.
What did you race in footwear wise?
I raced in the Hoka Rocket X2s.
Okay. Right on.
So we're wonderful. But one thing, they got so waterlogged because of all the water stops. The other thing is they used really thick plastic cups.
Okay.
So people couldn't grip it and sip
Squish
it,
it. Yeah.
squeeze. And
Yep.
so people were just spraying water everywhere.
Oh, jeez.
And so my socks and my shoes were just completely soaked. So it was very tough to run in. And I had a couple black toenails, not to get too graphic, but it was pretty tough because it was just like they were so heavy from all the water. It made the last 5 miles tough. Not only that, but you're fully exposed too. So once the sun came out,
Right.
it was about 40 degrees to start, but then it warmed up to about 65. And it was just full sun. So you're really feeling it, especially in the last 5K, because it's also kind of windy because you're starting to get downtown. And then in the last 800, it's kind of like Boston, where you see the Brandenburg Gate and you're like, all right, the finish is so close, but it's so far. So you're just sprinting, you're just ready to be done. And so once I saw that, I just immediately was just like, let's go, let's go, let's go.
So you got under 250.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And then what did the turnaround look like from because obviously that went well, so you decided to do Tunnel Hill. So what did that look like in between? You said you had about 6 weeks in between. So what did those 6 weeks look like for you?
So the first week, I took a few days off just because we were also traveling back from Berlin. So just the time and just really took it easy. And then the first couple runs back, I wanted to make sure everything felt good physically. And also seeing our PT to say, hey, how did everything look? Like, I feel good running. Can I physically, you think, do the 50 miles? Because I was like, you know what? I feel pretty good. Like, why not? This is the time before the record gets broken. I might as well use this fitness. And, she was very concerned and kind of said, listen, you can't just ride a wave, because what do waves eventually do? They crash. And why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you want to do these records and all that, or do you really want to do it? And it was really good to have that perspective where it's like, why? What is your why? Because as you know, in races, we question everything of why we're doing it. So with all that, and also if it was cool with Ben, like, he's going to be the one crewing, he's going to be the one dealing with me, if this will all work out logistically. And so everything aligned. And then that's when I called Janice to say, all right, let's do a plan. And initially first week was kind of chill running and then building up the miles. And she had me doing like a 20 miler within the next week. And I was like, 18, and then just slowly build up. And then to the point where my peak, I was doing a 25-mile run with some pace work and then a 20 miler the next day.
Wow.
So, and that went really well. So it made me go, all right, I can do this. Like, I can do the volume. It just made 20 miles feel normal, like not a problem, like doable.
Yeah, right.
Which is so weird to
think. Yeah. And so led you into Tunnel Hill. Now, what was the conversation in your head? I mean, obviously you wanted to go after the course record, as well as, in the process getting the master's record. And now, with that said, you obviously knew what you had to pace to do so, right? And then getting comfortable with that pace. And now, was the plan to have any pacers at the race or to do this solo? What did that look like?
So in the training, one of my friends, Joe, who did Tunnel Hill or did Strolling Jim as well, and we trained some together, was going to do Tunnel Hill too. He had a very good Chicago and wanted to do Tunnel Hill as well. He had family in Chattanooga, so it was pretty convenient. And we were going to pace it together. He had some difficulty in the later miles of Strolling Jim, and he was like, I should have paced with you better because in the last mile I had passed him at Strolling Jim. And so he was like, oh my gosh. But he's new to the ultra running and longer distance. So he's like, let's pace together and then see where we're at. So we did a lot of long runs together. He also is coached by Janice as well. So we have very similar training plans. So we would do a couple long runs together. We did about 16 miles together, a pace work. So we just found that rhythm.
Cool.
And so for Tunnel Hill, we started off together and just kind of felt that rhythm of 7:05s. I kind of got that idea because I knew with Tunnel Hill, the first, it's 2 out and backs. So the first out and back is about 13 miles and it's flat. So you really can get into a rhythm. And then the second half, it's flat and then about 5 miles of gain. So it's like rolling hills. And then you turn around and then you have a nice downhill coming up. So it's okay to have a little bit slower miles in that part, but you make up for it in the downhill. But it's also the last 8 miles of the race, so you're also tired. So it's a fine balance. So we went in with saying, all right, we'll start at this pace and kind of bank time, but it's a doable pace because I thought, all right, it's 40 seconds slower than my marathon pace. And Strolling Jim, I was about 5 seconds slower than this pace, but Tunnel Hill has about 2,000 feet less gain than Strolling Jim. So it was a lot of like, all right, what kind of pace is reasonable? So we went in and just started that and literally did that the whole time. We had a couple people join in, including the woman, Polina, that won. She kind of joined in and we ran about 13 to 42 together, which was wild. She's a 2:35 marathoner. So I knew I had my work cut out for me to race against someone like her. And she was wonderful. And it was very bittersweet to all of a sudden at mile 42, she just, hit the gas and just was off. And so, but I think it helped to have some competition within the race too, because we kept each other accountable and kept each other honest.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I mean, you're still competing at the same time. And so, going from Berlin where, you're looking at probably what you said, 7 to 8 gels. Did you have to change your nutritional strategy for Tunnel Hill?
Oh yeah. So I went to the nutritional plan that I did for Strolling Jim, which really helped because I would see Ben about every 5, depending on the spot, every 5 to 10 miles. So I didn't see him for the first 10 miles. And then I saw him about every 5 miles there on after. And what I did is I had a soft flask and I wore a naked belt and then I just had gels. So every 5 miles, I would switch off bottles, which I had goo Roctane in, some caffeinated and uncaffeinated. I started off with no caffeine. And then around mile 26, started with some caffeine just as a jolt, but didn't want to upset the stomach and have too much caffeine. And then had both uncaffeinated and caffeinated gels and just making sure, even though it was 35 degrees at the start, making sure I still had all the electrolytes and what I needed to really maintain it. And no GI issues, no bonks. It was just very smooth. So having that rhythm, practicing with it during some of my training runs and knowing what worked at Strolling Jim.
Now, I seem to remember somebody, I don't have to name any names, just taking the Roctane powder and consuming it. Um,
Yes,
again,
we've
not
come.
naming names, but was there any liquid in the Roctane
Yeah,
bottles?
there was full liquid. Bottles were already prepared. There was no straight powder in the mouth. There was no like white substances anywhere else except in the bottles. But yes, we've come a long way, Aaron. We are no longer Roctane savages.
That's fantastic. Oh, well,
My gosh.
it sounds like everything's moving around, or moving pretty well for you. And now with that 8 miles to go, when the eventual race, female race winner went ahead, were you guys still on the 7:05 pacing?
Yeah, I looked at my watch and yeah, we were really on that pace and I was kind of seeing where we were in terms of timing for the record and also just course record. And just it was just amazing. Like the fact that it was still pretty smooth and making sure I was still under that pace and all that. It had slowed a little bit going uphill, but coming back downhill, I also didn't want to push it too much because I had taken a fall about 2 weeks prior, and so my knee was like a little banged up. So I could feel it a little bit. So I didn't want to overdo it and then fall or something, but also have that pace. So it felt really smooth and, just was passing people. And the good thing about the out and back is you would see people as you turned around. So you knew where other people were.
Right.
And so you knew like the first turn, I saw that Polina was like a minute behind us, and then she eventually caught up. But it was also cool to see a lot of the 100-mile women were pretty close and really up front, and they had a stacked field. And one of the highlights was Devin Yanko was there, and she was like, "Hey, Allison." And then Joe's next to me, and I go, "She knows my name." Believe it. And Joe's just like, we're in the middle of a race and all you're thinking about. I'm like, sorry. You can take, the girl out of the fan out of the girl, but you can't take,
Yes.
I'm one first and foremost, I am a fan of the sport. So,
cool.
When you
cool.
people like her, I'm like, just like Camille, it's
awesome.
just wild to be part of that and be recognized.
So cool. How did you set up your watch? Did you set it up for average pace so that you could see if you were hitting 7:05, or did you set it up actual?
Yeah, no, I just had it on miles and total miles and pace. So if I knew we were going up a little too much, I say, Joe, dial it back. Joe, dial it back. And every mile marker, I'm like, yes, we're on it. We're on pace. We feel good. It felt really smooth. And one thing I've noticed is just once I get into a pace, it's set it, forget it. So we really hit a groove, and a couple of the 100-mile guys kind of joined in because they saw that we were just in that pace, that you going here, this is ours. We're not going any faster. We're not going any slower. We're just starting this first 20 miles as just set it, forget it. Let's go. So
right on.
They kind of eventually fell off, but I think it was a little too aggressive.
Sure.
And I talked to a couple other the 100-mile guys, Taggart, Phil Young. I even reached out to Pat, Corey Waltering, just to get some insight into the course, pacing, what they were going to pace at, and just what to do, and just best practices. Zach Bevan, who really helped a lot with Strolling Jim, just because I'm a person that, when they go into a race and want to do well, you want to know everything about the race to set you up for success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so coming in, when you're in that final mile, you recognize Polina's ahead of you. And you're like, well, course record's not, were you just like, okay, well, it's the master's record, it is. Mentally you were, I'm sure pretty excited to get to the finish line, but when she passed, Was there any type of negative? Did you go into a negative space, or were you able to stay positive and just focus on what you were doing?
I mean, I don't even like now I'm trying to think back. I mean, I'm like, why did I not go faster? Why did I not? And I guess that was just all I had. And, you can't, I was, of course, mad because there was course record prize money. And I
Mm,
was like, am I letting people down? Like, getting second, like, just felt kind of defeated. But at the end of the day, it was like, no, like the times we set, we push each other, you know, you got to be proud of that, setting
yeah.
an American record. Um, and then seeing the time at a sub 6 hour
Mhm.
50 milers, nothing to scoff at when you
Not at all.
see how it ranks. So it was just, yes, I am a competitive person. I want to win. I want to dominate. I want to destroy, but you can't help, you got to see the silver lining
Yeah.
of what this presented. And like I said, if she wasn't there pushing it, she wasn't there, I don't know how it would have finished.
Right.
So,
Yeah, which she was, let's see, uh, about just under 3 minutes, so 2 minutes and 58
mm,
seconds ended up being the difference between you and
mhm,
Karina. So super close. I mean, especially over 50 miles. I mean, it happened in the
yeah,
last 8 miles, you say, but
mhm,
you came across the finish line knowing that you had just accomplished, setting a new American Masters record, which is awesome. And so her final time was 5:57:12, which is absolutely insane. uh, so
yeah,
cool. Um, First, congratulations on that. That puts you second female overall in the 50 miler, seventh overall in the race itself.
mhm.
Charlie Lawrence just set a new, was it world record? Is that
World
right?
record,
Yeah, a new
yeah,
world record. He ran 4:48, 21 to set a new world record at 50 miles. And then Raj Paul was second in 5:02. So he was about a little under 14 minutes back, which
mhm.
incredible. Some incredible times that were run, obviously. I mean, we had records falling all over the place. um,
Yeah.
what does the world masters record look like? How fast is that? Do you know?
I don't. I just know that I'm now third all time among masters worldwide,
Oh,
which is
oh wow.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
It's just not even because it's just funny because that just shows you my perspective is I just smart like American and I didn't even think about world until Camille posted about it.
that's
And
cool.
just thinking that's where I rank is just mind-boggling to me and just shows like anything is possible too.
Yeah,
And looking into that and looking in the future about the 100K.
sure.
So
That's so
um
cool.
but
That's so
yeah,
cool.
and speaking of Charlie and Raj, like they literally, because it was an out and back, were floating. Like they're going so fast, but it just looks so effortless. And I met Charlie the day before, and he couldn't have been nicer. Just running around, warming up, getting ready, and calling a shot, which
Yeah,
takes tremendous courage and I as guts to just say, hey, I'm going for it. To go for a Walmsley record,
right.
you really have to do your due diligence. So it
Sure.
was amazing to see and watch.
That's cool. That's cool.
Mm,
You had mentioned that there's prize money for records.
mhm.
Was there prize money for the Masters record?
No, but I got prize money for finishing second. So
Right on.
um, only prize money for world records because
Oh, okay.
Camille set the 100-mile world record and then Zach Bitter set the um, world record there too.
Gotcha.
So, it's just, I feel like Tunnel Hill is the Valencia
Yeah.
marathon of ultras where it's not a marathon major. It's not Western States a Hard Rock, UTMB. But if you want to run fast and set records
Yeah.
and have one of the most well-run, supported races, you go there. I can't recommend it enough.
So
And
cool.
as you know, having a good race director, good structure, good system, people that love it, good volunteers, amazing race photography. Um, you can't ask for a better race than that.
So you had good race pictures because that's the important thing.
Obviously. I mean, you only look so good when you're going like all out, but I mean, I don't know if they photoshopped or did a lot of special effects, but some of the photos, I mean, the one I have posted, it's just phenomenal. It just shows the joy and just also fall anywhere with the leaves changing. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna need that finished picture so I can post it with social with this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God. The just amazing. Oh, let me just say congratulations. That's still mind blown. When I saw the post, I was like, oh my God. So fantastic. Really, I'm so happy for you. Okay, so post fact now, you finished your hopefully your year-end goals have been met. Yeah. So what does this time period look like for you?
It is just recovery and just thinking to 2024. And I mean, I'm back running just very casually because I love running. Like anyone that knows me, I just want to be outside. I just want to be, I don't need to be doing speed workouts, whatever. I just want to be out running. Yeah. So, just enjoying that, enjoying the holiday time, and there's no pressure. It's just don't need to go do this or that. And just waiting to see, as I've talked about before, the 100K national team, seeing what the requirements are, and hopefully make the team, and hopefully there's a world championship. And that's the ultimate goal. And one of the driving factors for doing Tunnel Hill was to have a 50-mile qualifier, since Strolling Jim wasn't really a qualifier since it's under 50 miles. So hopefully it puts me in good standings that I can represent the U.S. in the world championship.
That's so cool. Best of luck there. It's traditionally been Mad City, but as you kind of said, they haven't announced what 2024 championships are yet. But that's really cool, and we can't wait to see what you do. Is there anything else that we missed, didn't talk about, that you'd like to talk about a little bit about, or I think we went pretty darn in depth.
I think we talked about everything. I really appreciate you reaching out and all your encouragement and
oh my goodness,
everything throughout all of our crazy adventures, and appreciate that all that you do. So I'm very excited to share my story and what happened, and just can't wait. And I hope it encourages other people that it doesn't matter. It's funny, when you turn 40, and when I did in April, I was like, what does this mean? And, you told me 10 years ago, no, you're going to be setting these records. You're going to be doing 7-minute miles for 50 miles. Like, no, it's something I never thought was possible. And like you say, you surround yourself, and with my family being super supportive, husband, everyone, it just shows you anything. It's just a positive mindset and just having the right preparation.
Fantastic. It's a great way to close this out. If people want to follow you, how can they connect with you?
A Strava, because where else do runners go, and Instagram, One Woman Dance Party, as I had the best introduction ever. It's always wild to me. Maybe this is just shows my age, when everyone refers to you as your Instagram handle and not your name, and I'm like, okay. But yep. One Woman Dance Party at your service.
Yeah. So connect with her, follow her on Strava, show her some love. She's amazing. Allison, it's a pleasure, an honor to have you on here. Congratulations once again. I'm just so happy for you. Oh man, what an amazing feat.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Congratulations to Allison once again. I can't say how impressed I am, because I'm just flabbergasted. Super fast, super amazing. She is awesome. I love her positivity. So please, give her a follow. She's definitely worth it. She does some outstanding things. So appreciate that so much, Allison. Thank you. I know she's listening. So man. So, like I said at the beginning, I had a question come in about running as keto or being on a keto diet and training. because I've talked about it in the past. Now, I wouldn't say that I was on a keto diet. I was on a low carb diet. So there's a lot here to unpack. Now, keep in mind, I am not a dietitian. I do not say whether someone should be on a keto diet, a carbohydrate diet. That's not my place. I can only tell you my experience. And the reason why I did it. Now, people have reasons for being on a keto diet. Now, the difference being between keto and low carb is that we are looking at staying in ketosis, right? Which requires, in honesty, a little bit of testing to determine whether you are, remaining in ketosis. What are your ketone levels? Now, I did not do that. I just went low carbohydrate. I just tried to keep my carbs low. I wasn't monitoring exactly how many carbohydrates I was intaking per day. I was just making sure that I wasn't, eating any large amounts of carbohydrates, which include, I did not eat many breads, rices, potatoes, grains. It was, I just made sure that I was eating primarily vegetables, definitely protein, salads, the like. And so my doctor, had recommended, why don't we try a low carbohydrate diet and see if it takes off some of the weight, which was, my goal, because I was not having success. We did blood tests to make sure that everything was functioning properly. And, I had my physical and everything seemed to be okay, but I just wasn't getting the weight off. Now, recently, I'll say that, I had a conversation with Meredith Terranova. You heard our conversation on the podcast, but I've had 2 conversations with her, and we determined that my metabolism, because of my eating habits, I wasn't activating my metabolism. My metabolism wasn't fast enough to keep up with the way I was eating in my eating schedule. And so now that I have, been eating on schedule and trying to eat at the same time every day, as well as getting in food prior to running, my runs feel so much better. My weight is going down. My metabolism is starting to activate and get faster again. We are retraining my metabolism. So, is it necessary to go on on a ketosis diet? Well, there's a few things here. Again, consult a dietitian. Talk to a dietitian, and determine whether, ketosis would be a right state for you. Is it a medical professional that's recommending ketosis? The question really was, is it possible to run on a keto diet? Now, again, you are an N of 1, right? There's no this is going to work for every single person. What I will say is that the energy demands of running can be very, high, and if you're on a ketosis diet, you're going to have to keep your heart rate low. That's just plain and simple, and work in zone 2 and zone 3, where you're, primarily burning fat for energy, right? Zone 2 is going to be the ideal state for you if you're in ketosis. That is your fat burning zone. When you start going into zone 3, you're going to start burning more glycogen, which is going to require more carbohydrates of you. And so without those carbohydrates in your diet, you're going to feel a diminished energy level. You're not going to be able, your heart rate's going to spike because it's trying to keep up, and it's deriving from systems that just can't pull enough glycogen for a long period of time because you're not supplying it with the glycogen. So be very careful if you're going to go on a ketosis diet. Yes, it is possible, but you're going to have to monitor your heart rate. And by that, I would suggest wearing a heart rate monitor. A chest strap is going to be the most accurate. And, really finding out what is your maximum heart rate, and then, finding out where is your zone 2 and staying within that zone 2, which is very difficult, especially for trail runners, because once we hit an uphill, you have to go extremely slow on the uphills. Now, it's not to say that, if you go out for an hour run, that you're going to bonk. That's not the case here. We're talking about more of our long efforts, especially in the mountains when you start climbing a lot. You're just going to feel this energy dwindle because the body's really trying to catch up and provide it with glycogen to supply you at the heart rate that you're at if it's above zone 2. So to make this this long-winded answer a little bit more short, is it can work. A ketosis diet can work if it's necessary for you as a distance runner, but you're going to really have to monitor your heart rate. Okay, that's the big takeaway here. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. If you have further questions, and I can answer them, I certainly will try. But again, consult your primary care physician, consult a dietitian, talk about these things. Do they make sense for you? And do they make sense for the running that you want to do? If you're doing marathon training, that's going to be more difficult, obviously. If you're doing ultra training, it can work, right? But you're going to have to be a little bit more creative in your diet and meeting these needs of your body if you're training for something quite fast, quite difficult, or that requires a higher elevated heart rate. Okay, so that would be my response. So thank you for the question. I really do appreciate that, and I hope that does help. Otherwise, I had a great session with Will France. He is a coach, previous podcast guest. Actually, the highest amount of downloads was from Coach Will's podcast with me. Really impressed with how many downloads we got. But aside from that, he is a strength coach as well. And so we did a Zoom call. He did kind of a functional movement screening with me to determine my mobility, my strength, my weaknesses and lack of mobility, and then prescribed a strength training program. Twice a week, I've got a strength training mobility program that should help these areas of tightness, weakness, lack of mobility. So a great time with him. I super appreciate him. If you're looking to connect with Coach Will just to do the same, let me know. He's typically $100 a month, and you can have unlimited access and ask questions of Will, but you can also connect with him on his website. So I'll try to post that stuff in the show notes. But I'm very excited to have my own strength training program, like Allison was mentioning in the podcast that Marissa Romeo provided for her. It's great to have that piece. I typically had been programming myself, and I'm not the strength coach, right? Like that's not my forte, my strength. I understand it. I have basic concepts of it, but it's nice to have somebody overseeing that piece of it. So far as my running goes, last week I was a little bit tired. I had helped Natalie Daniel on her 200-mile run from the Grandfather Mountain over to the terminus of Art Loeb at Davidson River, and kind of put me a little bit behind this week. I was a bit fatigued. So Friday just ended up being a super busy day. And probably for, good reason, I just took the day off. And then Saturday I was volunteering at the Looking Glass 100K and had planned on getting out for a run. But, again, other things popped up and, I didn't get home until late. So I just took another day off and recuperated and went for a run Saturday. And now, I kind of tweaked my back loading the trailer and unloading the trailer. Wife got that fixed for me. And, I was feeling good Sunday, but I didn't want to push it. So I ran about 6 miles with some friends, had a great run. I twisted my ankle. Dang it, that left ankle. it twisted it again. But I got done, and Caleb, who paced me at Wasatch, he wanted to go like 4 more miles. I was like, yeah, I'll join you for that. So we ran just nice and flat on some of the dirt roads around Bent Creek and through the Arboretum. And just added on a little bit. So I got 10 in, felt pretty good about that. Ankle was a bit sore the rest of Sunday, and then today is Monday that I'm recording this. And I went for a walk with my dog. Actually felt pretty good. I wasn't hobbling, wasn't limping. I can still feel some pain. So, I'm not going to push it at this point in my training. No reason to push it or force training. So the walk will be good for today. And then tomorrow, I'll get back to a little bit of running. I'm going to just stay on roads and dirt roads for a bit, and work on some ankle strength while I'm at it, just to kind of make sure that I don't re-roll it, that I'm, my ankle is as strong as it can be. So just, like I said, it's too early to be worrying about all that. Did do some strides last week. First time I did hill strides in a long time. Definitely felt awkward. I know my neuromuscular response to strides is at a pretty low right now. So something I will continue to work on moving forward. Just working on my turnover, working on my stride, working on my form. But yeah, so nice to be reincorporating those. Still doing form drills and mobility as well. So continue to incorporate those into my schedule. As well as now doing the strength training twice a week is the plan from Coach Will. So that's great. We're doing a turkey trot on Thursday with my family. I have no idea what that's going to look like. There's 1,400 runners in this 5K. I have really no interest of trying to race, more just being there to support my family and enjoy it. Either I'll run with my wife if I can keep up, or with my daughter. Like I said, I don't really want to race a 5K at this point in my training. I think it could be, detrimental and end up getting me injured if I try to go too fast at this point, because I have no training to really substantiate me trying to race a fast 5K. So just going to do this one for fun. My next race is actually going to be at South Mountains Half Marathon I think that's January 7th, I believe. It's on a Sunday. So if I got the date wrong, forgive me. But South Mountains, for those who don't know, it's a great little state park. They have a 50K and a marathon on Saturday, and then the half marathons on Sunday. Beautiful waterfalls. It's a great place. Gorgeous views. It is east of Asheville, just a little bit down the mountain. So great race, though. Brandon Thrower puts it on. Tanawa Ventures, they're the ones that put on Looking Glass that we helped out with this past weekend. But super happy and stoked to toe the line again. I don't think I'll race in December. I think I'm just going to focus on training and kind of building back. Seems I need to incorporate a little bit more zone 2 work at the moment. I've been running a lot of zone 3. But I think I need to incorporate a little bit more zone 2 to reap some of the maximum benefits of that zone 2 training, which is something I'm going to go look back at 2020. 2020 and 2021, I seem to have 2 really good training cycles, and I want to dive back into it. And that's what's great about having Training Peaks and Strava, is you can really dip back into the data and just kind of see, well, how much zone 2 running was I actually doing? Because it seemed to really work in those 2 years. What I was doing, building up my base. Things are getting faster and I'm feeling better. So things are trending the right direction. I just want to make sure that I'm not doing too much zone 3 running. Like I said, you benefit a great amount from zone 2 in the base period. So I want to make sure I'm getting in enough volume at that zone 2. That's kind of where things are at the moment for training and racing, and strength training. Excited to again add that component. Not add it, but to have some direction in that. So, again, if you're looking to contact Coach Will, let me know. I gain nothing financially from any of these people. I simply want to make sure that you're getting the best out of your training. So great to meet so many of you at Looking Glass. I certainly appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. And if you have questions about training or whatever it may be, please, reach out to me. My connections are all in the show notes. You can visit my website, runningislife.run, and grab the information there. There is contact through the website there. So please feel free to connect with me. You can see my training on Strava, just as you can Allison's. So follow along, ask questions there. Love hearing from you. Appreciate the feedback. I feel obviously and definitely the positive reinforcement that everybody gives on Strava. It's so nice and welcome. I love our community. So thank you guys for everything. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. They're wonderful and obviously keep me moving. So if you can support for as little as $1 a month, it certainly goes a long way and keeps this going, keeps me motivated, keeps me wanting to give you the best out of the podcast that I can, the best guests. Speaking of which, our next guest will be Natalie Daniel. She's going to come on and talk about her 200 mile. She just set a new FKT. So established a route, and we're going to talk about everything that's gone into this, because there was definitely some hiccups and definitely some low points. It's going to be a fun conversation with Natalie, so I'm looking forward to that. This is going to reach your ears on Thanksgiving Day, so a very happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I hope you get to enjoy that, and get some fun running in, whether it be at a turkey trot, a group run, or whatever it may be. If you're looking for coaching, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, all my contact information is in the show notes. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Typically, I'll send you my call schedule link, and we'll set up a time to have a chat so we can go over and talk about things and see if we're a good fit for one another. So please, reach out if you're interested in coaching. Happy to do so. I think that's it for this show, my friends. I certainly appreciate your ears and your time for listening, for being a part of this podcast. As usual, if you can, share this podcast with others, leave a review. All those things help people find the podcast. So thank you again. And until next time, keep moving forward.